العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا سهلا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم بارك لنا في جمعنا هذا، اللهم اجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مباركا مرحوما، واجعل تفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما، ولا تجعل فينا ولا منا ولا معنا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا، وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان، واجعلنا من عبادك الراشدين. اللهم اجعل لنا من كل ضيق مخرجا ومن كل هم فرجا، واجعل لنا من بعد العسر يسرا. Oh Allah, we ask you to facilitate for us our affairs, to help us navigate through every difficulty and every trial, to make us steadfast upon the right path. Oh Allah, fill our hearts with your abundant mercy and fill our homes with your abundant mercy. Oh Allah, make us of your sincere servants, of your devout servants. Oh Allah, make us of those who enter Jannah without any accountability, without any hisab, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, we ask you to make the best of our days the last of our days, the best of our actions the last of our actions, and to make the best of all days the day we meet you and you are pleased with us. Ameen. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Amma ba'd. Brothers and sisters, this gathering that we have in the masjid on Friday nights is one that's very special. And what makes it special is because it's a gathering in which we come to reflect on the words of our dearly beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I mentioned last week, our scholars would treat this type of gathering with the utmost adab and respect. And we have the example in Imam Malik, the one who, when he would go out to a gathering in which he would give fatwa, he would go out as he normally would. But when he would go out for a gathering in which he says the words of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would do a full body ablution. He would be on tahara and wudu, and he would wear the best musk, and he would wear the best clothing, and he would come to the gathering and sit with utmost adab and respect until the gathering concludes. And that is the reverence that our predecessors always had for our dearly beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The more the one has such respect and reverence for the deen, for the words of the Quran, for the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more that he or she will find they benefit from the teachings of the Quran and the teachings of the Sunnah. One who has no respect when reciting the Quran, or when in a gathering when the Quran is recited, or when knowledge is taught, this person will have little benefit from that knowledge. And in fact, the Quran warns that this is one of the signs of hypocrisy. وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ إِنَّمَا كُنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ وَرَسُولِهِ كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. If you were to ask them, why are you laughing? Why are you mocking these words? They will say, we were just making fun. We were just كُنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ. We were just making fun. And then the Quran says, قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ وَرَسُولِهِ كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. Did you take the Quran and the words and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a reason for mockery? So this is very important that we carry ourselves in this gathering with that same level of respect. So brothers and sisters, we said that this gathering will be relatively very light. It's not meant to be a course. It's not meant to be an exhausting lecture. It's meant to be just a set of reflections on the words of our dearly beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we put the theme as prophetic foundations, discussing things that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that every Muslim needs to know. There are foundations for Islam taken from one of the sources of guidance, and that is the sunnah of our dearly beloved Prophet ﷺ. Today we have a hadith, and this hadith is very well known. It's a hadith that many of our scholars would mention in the beginning of their books, in the beginning of their hadith collections. This hadith is referred to as Hadith Niyyah, the Hadith of Intentions. This hadith is reported by Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab. And I'll read the hadith to you in Arabic and then in English, and then we'll begin discussing it inshaAllah. So the hadith says, عن أمير المؤمنين أبي حفص عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه قال: سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى، فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله، ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. This hadith by the Prophet ﷺ says the following. It says, the deeds are considered by the intentions, and a person will get the reward according to his intention. So whoever emigrated for Allah and His Messenger, his emigration will be for Allah and His Messenger. And whoever emigrated for worldly benefits or for a woman to marry, his emigration would be for what he emigrated for. This beautiful hadith is reported by Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, who's referred to as Amir al-Mu'mineen. He is the second Khalifa. In fact, he's the first one to have this title, Amir al-Mu'mineen. No one before him, they did not use this title, Amir al-Mu'mineen, before Sayyidina Umar. He's referred to in the hadith as Abu Hafs. Why was Sayyidina Umar referred to as Abu Hafs? Abu, what does Abu mean in Arabic? Of course, it means father, right? He's referred to as Abu Hafs. Does anyone know why? Why was he referred to as Abu Hafs? Anyone know? Any idea? Hafs in Arabic means lion. And Abu Hafs, he was referred to as this, not because he had a son named Hafs. He did not have a son named Hafs. He had a daughter named Hafsa, but that doesn't have to do with this. He was referred to as Abu Hafs لِشِدَّتِهِ وَقُوَّتِهِ. Because he was known to be powerful and fierce, he was given this laqab Abu Hafs. Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, there's many things to say about him. We discussed his seerah before. Sayyidina Umar is the father of the Prophet ﷺ's wife. Her name is Hafsa. Sayyidina Umar became Muslim in the 6th year after Hijrah. And he was the one who the Prophet ﷺ made dua for. Allahumma a'izz al-Islam bihabb al-Umarayn ilayk. Oh Allah, give glory to Islam by the most beloved of the two Umars to you. One of them was Umar ibn al-Khattab, and the other one was who? It's not Umar ibn al-Ghira, no. What's his name? Amr ibn Hisham. Amr ibn Hisham. So Sayyidina Umar was one of the two Umars, and he was actually the one who Allah guided to Islam. And when he became Muslim, the Muslims went public with their Islam. He became Muslim in the 6th year. Of course, the da'wah, the Prophet ﷺ began giving public da'wah after the 3rd year. But the Muslims together went public with their Islam after the Islam of Umar and Hamza. And their Islam was only 3 days apart. So this hadith is very important. It's referred to as Hadith al-Niyah. And as I said, the hadith scholars would often start their books with this hadith. Example is Imam al-Nawawi. Imam al-Nawawi has 3 well-known books, and in each of these books, he starts with Hadith al-Niyah. These 3 most well-known books to people are, does anyone know the 3 books that Imam al-Nawawi authored that are so widely available today? Anyone know? One, I'm sure you have at home. It's called Riyadh al-Salihin, Gardens of the Righteous. Who's the author? Imam al-Nawawi. Another one, if you've ever attended a halaqah, I'm sure you probably got exposed to it. It is the 40 Nawawi Hadiths. And the third one is Al-Adhkar. It's a book of different remembrances that the Muslim should say in the day and night, and this is also authored by Imam. In all of these 3 books, he starts off with Hadith al-Niyah. Now, scholars said many things about intentions. Why are they so critical? One scholar of Hadith said intentions are half of the deen. Because on one end, you're either referring to something going on inside, in your heart, and that is the intention. Or something relating to outward actions, and that is the amal. It is half of the deen in this sense. It is half of Islam. What's going on in your heart is half of your faith and your tadayyun and iltizam. Another scholar, Imam Shafi'i, he says that intentions relate to a third of knowledge. Now, I broke this subject down into a series of questions. Now, of course, you might have heard a talk about the importance of intentions before, but I hope this breakdown will help you remember a few things and perhaps shed light on some things you haven't heard before. The first thing is, why are intentions so critical? Why is the intention so critical? Why has it been given this ihtimam and this significance in Islam? Because the intention is the motive behind the act. Any outward, and this is very important, you can underline this, any outward change in behavior that doesn't relate to a shift in the person's motives will be temporary. Whenever someone changes the way he acts outside, if his motives inside his heart are still corrupt and he still has bad motives behind his actions, that will be short-lived. What you see on the outside, it will be temporary. And that's why our deen always focuses on spiritual development. And our early scholars, they focused on this as a priority for every Muslim. Now that's the first question. Now, second question for you. I would appreciate it if some of you try to answer. Is it enough to have a good intention? How many of you have ever heard this line before? Many people say it, especially when there's some deficiency in the person's practice. Often, the go-to excuse is, Allah knows that I have a clean heart, and Allah is forgiving, and Allah is merciful. When the brother or sister is told, Salah is important, Bir al-walidain is important, being good to your parents is important, praying and giving the rights of Allah is important, tending to your responsibilities is important. Allah knows what's in my heart, I'm a good person, and that's all that matters, and Allah is oft forgiving and oft merciful. How many of you have ever heard this line before? How many? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. It's very common. Now, this is a question for you, and the answer is kind of, hopefully it's obvious to everyone here. Is it enough to have a good intention? Is it enough to have a good intention? What's the other thing you need along with a good intention? Proper action, not just action. Right? The niyatun salihah wa amalun salih. You need to have a good intention and proper action. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he says in another hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَجْسَامِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَىٰ صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنظُرُ إِلَىٰ قُلُوبِكُمْ وَأَعْمَالِكُمْ. This hadith tells us what is really considered by Allah Azza wa Jal. It's not your appearances. It's not how you look. It's about your heart and your action. All right, now let me ask the question another way. Does having a good intention remove blame? Now, we said that intention isn't enough. What if someone has a good intention? They mean well, but they do something that's wrong. Does that remove blame? The fact that someone has a good intention, does it remove blame from the equation? What do you think? Does anyone think yes? All right, whoever said no, can you share with us why? Does having a good intention remove blame? You said no. Why doesn't it remove blame? Why doesn't it remove blame? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The intention is good. Yes. But is the person blameworthy for having he has a good intention, ما في مشكلة. بس العمل, the action is very bad. هل يلام هذا الإنسان على سوء فعله مع حسن نيته؟ ممكن لا يلام في كل الأحوال؟ مش في كل الأحوال؟ Okay, so يلام كثيرا ما يلام خاصة إذا كان في تقصير, especially if there's negligence. Yes, you want to share something? Yes. When there's negligence, even with good intention, that does not remove blame at all. Many people have caused a lot of damage with good intentions. This is a very important thing to understand. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, actions are assessed by their intentions, does not mean that when someone has a good intention, they are removed from blame. No, this is not what the hadith is trying to say. Sometimes a person has a good intention but causes a whole lot of damage. They divide between a husband and wife. They divide between two friends. They create hatred and animosity between two people. There's examples from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ of a person having good intention but falling into a whole lot of trouble. An example of this is speaking without knowledge. There's a hadith in which a group of 3 companions were traveling. And one of these individuals got injured in the head. And he got a wound in his head and he had to wrap it with something. So he asked his companions when it came time to pray, هل تجدون لي رخصة في التيمم? Do you know of any dispensation that I have so that I don't wash this wound in my head when I'm making wudu? So they said, we don't know of any such dispensation. So this person made wudu like he normally would. And no, actually he made full body ablution. He made ghusl. فاغتسل. فمات. Then he died. And then they came to the Prophet ﷺ. He died because his wound got infected and it was cold. And they went back to the Prophet ﷺ. They told him what happened. And the Prophet ﷺ was so upset with them. He said, قتلوه قتلهم الله. ألا سألوا إذ لم يعلموا. The Prophet ﷺ said, they killed him. And then he said, قتلهم الله. This is the Prophet ﷺ reprimanding them, saying, قتلهم الله. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cause them to face the same consequence or the same punishment. So he said, ألا سألوا إذ لم يعلموا فإنما شفاء العي السؤال. Why didn't they ask when they did not know? Sometimes a person gives a person, you have a friend who is married to a lousy husband, and you give her advice without clear knowledge and without having any experience, and your advice leads to the division of this family, and the problem gets a whole lot worse. Who's in fault here? Who will be held accountable here? This person had a good intention. They thought they were helping a friend. There's another example. The Prophet ﷺ tells us about the end of times. The Prophet ﷺ tells us at the end of times, knowledge will become very scarce. The hadith says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَقْبِضُ الْعِلْمَ انْتِزَاعًا يَنْتَزِعُهُ مِنْ قُلُوبِ الْعِبَادِ. Allah doesn't remove knowledge from the hearts of people. But knowledge will so slowly become scarce when good and knowledgeable people begin to die and pass away. حتى إذا لم يبق عالما أو لم يبق عالم. 2 narrations for the hadith. اتخذ الناس رؤوسا جهالا فسئلوا فأفتوا بغير علم فضلوا وأضلوا. These individuals will be in a position of influence, but they're ignorant. They're not worthy of that position. They have good intentions. They mean well for people, but they're not worthy of that position. So they speak without knowledge and they deviate others, and they themselves deviate. So that answers that question. Does having a good intention remove blame? Absolutely not. All right. Now we need to take a step back. What is an intention? The hadith tells us, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that these are considered by the intentions. Now, what is an intention? Now, there are different levels of intent. The highest of which is called niyyah in Arabic. In Arabic language, they divide it into 5 different levels. So you have something called a hajis, and something called a khatir, and something called hadith nafs, and ham, and azm. These are different levels of intent. Sometimes you just get a passing thought, and this thought doesn't settle in the heart at all. Sometimes it comes in your heart, and you consider it a little bit, but then you push it away. Sometimes you give it some level of consideration, but you don't really set your heart on it. Other times, you set your heart to do something. When you set your heart to do something, sometimes you actually do it, and sometimes you don't. Now, what is an intention? An intention is when you set your heart to do something, and you actually do it. This is what they say a niyyah هو العزم المقترن بالفعل. That's you set your heart to it and you actually follow through and do it. That's what an intention is. That's what a niyyah is. Sorry. The intention in English is general. Niyyah is much more specific and precise. So now that is what an intention is. These are things going on inside. And the scholars teach us that understanding the levels of intent are absolutely important in protecting your heart from the shaitan. Now that's why they say the best thing you could do as a believer, if you want to really purify your soul, is to observe the thoughts that are going on inside before they materialize into actions. There's one thing of muhasab, there's one thing to do muhasaba ala al-a'mal, to hold yourself accountable for your deeds. But there's another thing that everyone must do in terms of holding yourself accountable for the thoughts that you're allowing within. Because when the thoughts become consistent and persistent, that's when they start to become into actions. فَمُرَاقَبَةِ الْأَفْكَارِ قَبْلَ مُرَاقَبَةِ الْأَعْمَالِ. So this hadith, what is intention? This is, we said, what is intention. Now, do you get the reward for a good intention? Now, of course, when I say intention here, I'm meaning azm or niyyah. You set your heart to it. Now, when you set your heart to do something good, do you get the reward for it, whether you do it or not? Yes, of course. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ tells us, if you actually do it, it's multiplied by 10. If you don't actually do it, it's at least written as 1 hasana. Now, do you get the sin for not doing a bad deed? Now, you have a bad intention sometimes. You might do it and you might not. If you do it, of course, you're going to get the sin for it. What if you don't do it? You don't get the sin. This is min fadlillahi ta'ala. If you set your heart to something and if you consider doing something wrong and then you don't actually do it, you get a good reward instead of it. So, now there's something else to talk about when it comes to intentions. This hadith is a very important subject. Intentions, good intentions, I should say, are the hallmark of piety. Unwan as-salah, an-niyya as-salihah. Because the Prophet, it's said in the hadith and some of the athar, niyyatul mu'min ablagu min amalihi. The individual, the believer, might have the intention to do a lot of good things. But what he could actually do is far less than what he intends to do. Because the believer is someone who has a lot of goodwill. The believer is someone who wants to do a lot of good things. So this is a sign of iman. And this is what made our salaf very unique. Because they would multiply their intentions for every single act. And when you multiply the intentions, you multiply the reward. And there's something in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about this. This is a benefit of having good intentions. Being someone who has a lot of goodwill. That even if you can't do it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the reward for it. Or even if you are able to do it at one point in your life, but because of some illness or because of travel, you are not able to continue doing it, Allah still gives you the reward. This is hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إِذَا مَرِضَ الْعَبْدُ أَوْ سَافَرَ كُتِبَ لَهُ مِثْلُ مَا كَانَ يَعْمَلُ مُقِيمًا صَحِيحًا. Prophet ﷺ teaches us that when the individual becomes sick or travels, he gets the same reward for the actions he would do when he was healthy, in the best of his health. And this is something that's a bishara for people who grow old and weak, and during their younger years they were very dedicated in ibadah, and they would do a lot of extra good deeds. This is a bishara for them. The Prophet ﷺ says that Allah will treat you not according to your old age, but according to your healthiest state. Then this is in the verse of the Quran, لِيُكَفِّرَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ أَسْوَأَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا وَيَجْزِيَهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. So that Allah forgives them the worst of what they've done and rewards them according to the best of what they've done. Now, another question. What do intentions do? Yani, what is the purpose of an intention? What's the purpose of an intention? Can anyone answer that? What's the purpose of an intention? No, that's not what's meant, huh? What is it? Accomplishment? What does an intention do to the act that makes it different than other acts? Huh? You want to say something? It motivates it? No. These are good answers, but what the intention actually does is it separates between a habit and an act of worship. Not only that, it does something else. It distinguishes between the different levels of acts of worship. When you have an intention, it makes it different than washing, than just doing any ordinary act. This is a ada. And ordinary acts, we refer them as adat. Just you're doing them out of habit. Ibadat, this is something that you're doing with the intention of worship. The intention, the niyyah distinguishes it. Now, an example of this is someone who is making wudu. You're having trouble teaching your son or daughter the importance of making wudu. And they say to you, Baba, Mama, I don't understand why I have to make wudu. I'm clean. Why on earth do I have to wash my hands and wash my face and wash my feet? I'm clean. I just took a shower, right? Why do I have to make wudu now? I just took a shower a half an hour ago. My body is as clean as it could be. And now it's time to salah. Why do I have to make? This wudu is a ibadah. It's an act of worship. And that's why the scholars tell us to focus. When you're making a wudu, consider what's happening to your face. With the effects of the water of wudu, removing the sins from everything you looked at that you shouldn't have looked at. When you're washing your hands, removing the sins. This is what it is, an act of worship. It's not so that you can get outwardly clean, right? If it was just for the purpose of getting outwardly clean, then you can take some detergent or take some shampoo or some soap or something of the sort and wash yourself and you'll be as clean as can be. But that's not what it is. It's a ibadah. So النية تميز العادة عن العبادة أو تميز العبادة عن العادة وتميز رتب العبادات بعضها عن بعض. You're praying something that is a nafila, sunnah. You're praying qiyamul layl, nafila. You're praying a faridah that has different reward. You're giving a charity, it's just a general sadaqah. You're giving zakah, this is your fard and your obligation. It distinguishes between the levels of acts of worship. That's what an intention does. Now, the next point. Intention and steadfastness. This is a very important thing. And al-ikhlas, I should say al-thabat, steadfastness. What is steadfastness? Steadfastness is al-thabat. Steadfastness, al-thabat, لا يقدر عليه إلا المخلصون. The only one who's really able to stay steadfast in the face of trials and difficulties is someone who has sincerity in his heart or her heart. And this is why the importance of ikhlas is highlighted in so many verses and ahadith. Now, think of this with me for a second. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us this in the Quran, Surah Ibrahim. Allah gives us an example of the fa'idah, of the benefit of ikhlas. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً. What is it? كَلِمَةَ التَّوْحِيد, which is central to ikhlas. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do you not see how Allah has given an example of a pleasant word, that is kalimatul ikhlas, kalimatul tawheed, as something that its asl is thabit, its roots are fixed in the ground, and its branches are high in the heavens. Alright, then he says, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِت. Allah makes believers steadfast because of their sincerity. This is another benefit of this hadith. Why this hadith? As I said, this hadith, according to some scholars, is one of 4 ahadith, عليها مدار الإسلام. All of Islam, some scholars traced back to 4 fundamental hadiths. They are the foundations. And of course, we're going to mention these hadith later on, but one of them is hadith al-niyyah. This hadith about your motives, your intentions. If you're someone who's genuine about your Islam, if you're someone who seeks to be a real person, then you must be someone who's holding yourself accountable for your intention. There's no way avoiding it. This is something that is part and parcel to our Islam and to our connection with our Iman. You need to be that person if you're genuine about your Islam. You're genuine about being a real person. Brothers and sisters, another thing that the Quran tells us about ikhlas and steadfastness, the relationship between the two. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمْ حَسِبَ الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ أَلَّنْ يُخْرِجَ اللَّهُ أَضْغَانَهُم. Did those who have corrupt intentions, corrupt motives, they have toxic hearts, did they think that Allah will not bring to light those diseases that they harbor? أَمْ حَسِبَ الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ أَلَّنْ يُخْرِجَ اللَّهُ أَضْغَانَهُم. That's what tests do. They bring to light that intention in your heart. And that's why it's a very scary hadith. It relates to husn al-khatima. There's a strong relationship between ikhlas, sincerity, and having a good end to your life. Husn al-khatima. Husn al-khatima, la yuwaffaq laha illa al-mukhlis. The one who is blessed to have a good end to his or her life is someone who's sincere. There's a long hadith that we often mention just part of it, that mentions that the Prophet ﷺ went out in battle with the companions in one of the battles, and after the battle subsided, there was a man who fought very valiantly. And the people said that this person will definitely be from Ahl al-Jannah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Huwa fin nar. And the companions went to observe, where's this man? He was very brave. He did so many good things in this battle. We thought he was the fiercest among us, the bravest among us. And one of the companions saw that he was severely wounded, and he could not endure the pain from his wounds. So he put his sword on the ground. فَمَالَ عَلَى سَيْفِهِ. He took his life. That's it. He couldn't endure the pain. And his end was committing suicide because of the pain of the injuries he had in that battle. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, one of you does of the actions of the people of Jannah as it appears to people until he's only an arm's length away from it. And then he does of the actions of the people of hell, and then he enters it. And then one of you does of the actions of the people of hellfire until he's only an arm's length away, according to what appears to people. فِيمَا يَبْدُو لِلنَّاسِ. And then he does of the actions of the people of Jannah, and then he enters it. This shows us that ikhlas, sincerity, having a good will and having good motives behind your actions, this will be your refuge in your very last moments in this dunya. Steadfastness and intentions and sincerity, they strongly relate with one another. There's another thing here. Sincerity attracts. There's something about sincerity. When you're a sincere person, you're a genuine person, this penetrates hearts. This gives a certain barakah to your actions, certain barakah to your deeds, to your time, to your statements. It penetrates the hearts of others. People can feel sometimes the effects of a sincere person. They gravitate towards such people, especially people with a sound fitrah. And that's why they teach us in the books, مَا خَرَجَ مِنَ الْقَلْبِ وَصَلَ إِلَى الْقَلْبِ. That which really comes from a person's heart will penetrate others' hearts. This is why sincerity is strongly intertwined with consistency. One of the signs of ikhlas is having a level of consistency in your actions. Right? And that's why they say, مَا كَانَ لِلَّهِ دَامَ وَاتَّصَلْ وَمَا كَانَ لِغَيْرِهِ انْقَطَعَ وَانْفَصَلْ. That which is for Allah will be blessed with consistency. And that which is for other than Allah Azza wa Jal will dissipate and fade away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with sincerity, brothers and sisters, because wallahi it affects so many things in life, so many things. If only the people had sincerity in their actions, in their statements, they would often find that there's a big difference in their mood, in their impact, in the outcomes of those actions. Khlas, lahu sirrun ajib. Is the next thing that I ask in this hadith, is having an intention a condition for validity? Now, what does this mean exactly? هل النية شرط في صحة العمل أم في كماله? When the Prophet ﷺ says إنما الأعمال بالنيات, actions are considered by their intentions. Does this mean that in order for the action to be valid, there must be an intention? Or does it mean in order for the action to be complete, that it must have an intention? This is something the scholars of fiqh, they discussed. When someone takes a shower and doesn't have the intention of wudu, and after he finishes the shower, he says, oh, I need to pray dhuhr. But then he says to himself, oh, I didn't have the intention. Does he need to have the intention in order for that shower to count for his wudu? Or can he now pray because he washed all of the limbs of wudu that would normally be washed? What do you think? What do you think? If you say you have to have the intention in order for it to count for wudu, raise your hand. Okay. Now if you say the opposite, if you say that, no, just taking a shower would be enough, now you can go pray without having to make your wudu again. Raise your hand. Anyone? Oh, mashallah. We have one person, two people. Okay. So the answer to this is something that the scholars have differed about. The Shafi'i school says that based on this hadith, it shows that the Prophet ﷺ saying, إِنَّمَا صِحَّةُ الْأَعْمَالِ بِالنِّيَّةِ لَا يَصِحُ الْعَمَلُ إِلَّا بِنِيَّةِ. And the Hanafi school says, لا, the action is valid, but it's not complete. Meaning, لَن تُثَابَ إِلَّا عَلَى مَا نَوَيْتِ. You will not be rewarded except for what you intended. But will it count for wudu? That even though you wash the limbs, it will count and you could go, but you won't get the reward of wudu. But you could still go pray. That's what the Hanafi school would tell you. This is a khilaf fiqhi, and it's a side note. Is having an intention a condition for validity? Well, you know what? Not every action needs does every action, in order for it to count, does it need an intention? No. Salah, yes. Wudu, yes. Zakah, yes. But there's some actions that when they're done, khalas, they count. Like for example, when a Muslim passes away, the body is washed. You didn't have an intention. Is it going to count? Or do you need to wash him again and have an intention? No, it's going to count. Khalas, you wash the body. You don't need to wash it again. Another example from this is when you come to the masjid and you pray 2 rak'ahs. Right? You do these rak'ahs, why? We call them tahiyatul masjid. This is your respect and your reverence for the house of Allah Azza wa Jal. When you prayed the 2 rak'ahs, you did not have the intention. You just entered the salah and you prayed. Does it count for tahiyatul masjid, or do you need to repeat it again? Yes, it counts. Because you respected the masjid. The whole point was you revered and you respected the masjid with those 2 rak'ahs. Not every action needs an intention for it to count. But there's certain actions that it's required to have an intention. But there's a fiqhi discussion. And again, we want this to be spiritual. Right? So the next question about this issue. What is the punishment for insincerity? For not having ikhlas? What is the uquba? First off, the disease that's associated with not having sincerity is riya, is showing off, is ostentation. And this is referred to as something else besides riya. What is riya, showing off, also referred to as? Does anyone know? Huh? Is it? Pride? No, pride is something else. Ostentation and showing off. What is it referred to in the sunnah as? There's another thing it's referred to as. Does anyone know? No, arrogance is another disease. It's also referred to as ash-shirk al-asghar, the lesser idolatry. What's the punishment for this? What's the punishment for shirk? It's actually very... Sorry? You want to say it? So, the punishment is actually very, very scary. And there's a hadith that shows us what insincerity could do. How could it damage a person's status in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal? How can it ruin a person, no matter how great outwardly? This hadith is reported by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah and others. But when he would report this hadith, he would get so terrified. It's reported that even one time he narrated this hadith and he fainted from how afraid he was of being of one of these individuals on the Day of Judgment. What does the hadith tell us? The hadith tells us that the punishment for insincerity is being one of the first thrown into the blaze of hellfire. And these individuals who are the first to be thrown into hell are not people who the Prophet ﷺ describes doing kaba'ir, doing major sins, or at least outwardly. These are individuals. One of them was a person of knowledge, a scholar. Another was a mujahid, someone who put his life and limb on the line. He sacrificed his life for Allah, outwardly, it seemed. And a third person is a person who would give a lot of charities, giving up what the heart loves and desires. Each one of these individuals did these noble acts, but they didn't do them from Allah, for Allah Azza wa Jal. And the consequence of that was they were thrown into hellfire. The hadith is long. I'm not going to mention to you the hadith now because it's a very well-known hadith. But I'm going to leave it at that. That these are, what's the punishment for insincerity? Being among those who are cast into hellfire. There's another hadith that tells us about a man who will be in hellfire. And he will be going about in hellfire with his intestines protruding from his body. And he is making a very loud squealing sound. فَيَجْتَمِعُ عَلَيْهِ أَهْلُ النَّارِ. And they'll ask him, what are you doing here, O Fulan? We used to know you as a good person. And then he will say, I used to tell people to do good, and I didn't do it myself. كنت آمر بالمعروف ولا آتيه وأنهى عن المنكر وآتيه. And I would tell people to not do awful things, and I would do them myself. And this person will be one of those people in the fire of hell. How does insincerity immediately invalidate the deeds? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ وَإِلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ وَلَتَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Prophet ﷺ was told in the Quran, if you associate another with Allah, then your deeds will be invalid and you'll be of the losers. لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ وَلَتَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. Now, does insincerity immediately invalidate the deeds? What do you think? When someone is doing a good action and he finds that his intention, some bad thoughts came to his mind, and he started doing this action for other than Allah. These thoughts came to his mind. Does it immediately invalidate the deeds? No? Then what? Huh? Okay, if it doesn't invalidate the deeds, then when does it ever invalidate the deeds? What if he acts on it? What if he partially, say if he finished 90% of the act, and towards the very end of the act, his intention was corrupted. He changes his intention. Is the whole thing invalid from the very beginning? Or is part of it invalid? What's the answer? What do you think? Huh? Whatever he completed it on, if he repents, here's the answer. All right, the answer is actually detailed. The scholars, they tell us, إذا كان الباعث على العمل غير الله عز وجل فالعمل باطل من أصله. If the person started the act seeking other than Allah, then this action is completely invalid. If his intention behind the act from the get-go was other than Allah, then it's completely invalid. What's an example of that? Someone, he doesn't really pray, but he's in a gathering, and there's people who pray in the gathering. And it's time, they had their dinner, and they had some social time, and now it's time to pray. He knows, between him and himself, that he doesn't pray, But if he doesn't pray, people are going to criticize him. What does he do? He prays with everyone else. This person, he doesn't pray because of ubudiyya lillahi azza wa jal. He prayed because of fear of what they would say. This person, his amal is batil min aslihi لأنه لم يقصد وجه الله تعالى في هذا العمل. He didn't intend Allah to begin with. He intended to avoid criticism. Now, but when the action is done for Allah azza wa jal, then the scholars, they say that Allah's fadl and His karam is that He would not make something that is mostly healthy and good completely void of benefit. They say that it goes depending on the intention. If most of his intent through that act was for other than Allah, yes, then the amal is batil. But if most of it was good with good intention, but it was tainted by some corrupt intentions, then he'll get partial reward for this act. But there's a very scary hadith I want you to pay attention to here. This also shows us about the consequence of lack of sincerity. The Prophet ﷺ said, لأعلمن أقواما من أمتي يأتون يوم القيامة بحسنات أمثال جبال تهامة بيضا فيجعلها الله عز وجل هباء منثورا. I'll know people on the day of judgment who will come with good deeds like mountains, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make those mountains into dispersed dust. فيجعلها الله هباء منثورا. So the companions, they said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, يا رسول الله صفهم لنا جلهم لنا ألا نكون منهم ونحن لا نعلم. Describe to us, who are these individuals, so that we're not from them when we don't know. So then the Prophet ﷺ says, أما إنهم إخوانكم ومن جلدتكم ويأخذون من الليل كما تأخذون. These are not individuals who are foreign to your actions and your behavior. This is very scary, brothers and sisters. Prophet ﷺ said, they're your brothers or sisters. And they are from the same background that you are from. They're just like you. And they pray from the night like you pray. But they're individuals. ولكنهم أناس إذا خلوا بمحارم الله انتهكوها. But they're individuals that when they're alone, what they do in their privacy, they breach Allah Azza wa Jall's boundaries. That's the consequence for lack of sincerity. بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة ولو ألقى معاذيره. There's nothing better that a person can do than to be genuine and sincere. Genuine with himself and sincere with his intent. There's nothing better that a person could do for himself. To live his life according to that asas. Live your life as someone who's genuine, someone who's pure, someone who really means what he says, what he does. There's nothing better that a person could do for that. The person, as the hadith says, if you are honest with Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you what you claim you want. إن تصدقوا الله يصدق. So as is in the known hadith. The next question is, and we're almost done here, what are the main causes for people seeking other than Allah in their actions? What are the main causes for intentions being corrupted? Can you try to guess a few? Weakness of faith, you're saying? ضعف الإيمان? So, okay, but what's more than that? Not every ضعف iman is going to mean that the person doesn't have, there's something. Why does the person change his intention? I will ask you this. Why does a person change his intention? You have an intention for Allah, and then there's some reasons that make you change it to something else. What causes you to change it? Not عدم الفقه في الدين. Some people they don't have ilm, but they're sincere people. Huh? Desires, that's general. What specific desires? Yes. Okay, that's one of them. Seeking praise. These are actually mentioned by Imam al-Hadith al-Muhasibi. He says that there are 3 motives that cause people to seek other than Allah. The first one is seeking praise. What do you think is the second one? Seeking praise, this one's the most obvious one. But that's like a praise. You're seeking others' approval. So generally speaking, you're seeking approval from others. All right, what's another one? Seeking wealth? How is having an intention other than Allah going to give you wealth? What do you mean? Clarify. Yeah, but that's different than lack of sincerity. That's different than riyā. that you're not giving time to prayer and you're always wanting to make money, this is a different problem. All right. Does anyone want to guess another one? Huh? I'll give you an example. Huh? Okay, so how does that change your intention? You seeking Allah, now you're seeking yourself. Why are you doing it for yourself? What do you mean? You're doing it to? Okay. Okay, these are general. I'll give you one that's more specific, a little more specific. Someone is in a fundraising dinner, right? And he's a doctor. He has a lot of, or he's whatever. People know he has a lot of money. And he sees other doctors giving 10,000, 5,000, 3,000, and he didn't give anything yet. If he leaves that fundraising dinner without giving anything, what would he be worried about? We already mentioned this about the person who prayed he doesn't really pray. What are people going to say? Oh, look at Fulan. He has millions. And he didn't give anything for this good cause. He didn't give anything for the orphans. He didn't give anything for the homeless. He has millions and he didn't give anything. What is he doing? He's fearing what? Criticism. This is the second reason why people do what they do for other than Allah. They do it khawfan min al-intiqad, fear of criticism. There's a third reason, and that is seeking status in the hearts of people. A new masjid is opening up. All right, I came to this community. I'm a wealthy person, and I want my opinion to be respected. I want to be someone who has a voice. Someone who, when I say something, people listen. So I'm going to say, here you go, here's $50,000 for your new masjid. And my intention behind this $50,000 is what? Is seeking certain status in their hearts. Because they know that I'm a person of influence. So I'm giving this $50,000, not for their praise, but so that I get influence. So that I get a seat on the board. Or that I'm in an influential position. This will, iyadu billahi ta'ala, so how shaitan, imagine what good rewards could have awaited that person for giving that amount of money for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And he sacrificed it, and the only thing that will remain is the sacrifice, not the reward. This is very scary. The Prophet ﷺ tells us about this in Hadith. رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ وَالْعَطَشُ. Someone might fast days on end, and the only thing he gets is hunger and thirst. And sometimes they might sometimes they might pray from the night, and the only thing they get out of that is exhaustion. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ تَعَالَى. This is the worst thing that the person has, that is left with the exhaustion, is left with the financial loss, is left with whatever it might be, and he walks away with nothing. That's except a short-lived praise that he got from others, or short-lived status that he got in the eyes of others. So these are the three main motives, according to the scholar: seeking praise, fearing criticism, or seeking status among people. Now, what are the main signs of insincerity, of riya and showing off? What is a sign? I need to know. Am I that person? Am I that person? The scholars, they tell us there's a few signs. You want to know if you're a disingenuous person? You want to know if you're seeking Allah or you're seeking other than Allah Azza wa Jal? One sign, and this is a very, very important sign, is that the person, when alone, is very lazy and he's very weak in his ibadah. But when in a congregation, he's very, very strong in his ibadah and very active and very motivated. This is very scary, very scary. That's why our salaf would always take advantage of the private time that they have with Allah. Because that thing that you do in secrecy, that'll only be between you and Him, subhanah. That'll help you build your sincerity. That make your action just for Him, subhanah. So this is a very important one. It's a sign. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is who you are, but it's definitely a sign. That when you're alone, you're praying in the very last few minutes, you're praying very quickly, you're praying with no khushu' at all. But when you're around others, you have the hay'ah of someone who's sincere. You look like it, and you say the words, good words, and you have even your facial expressions describe khushu' and so on and so forth. You look the look, and you walk the walk, but in actuality, in your heart, there's nothing. This is very scary. All right, this is the first sign. A second sign is when you're praised, you start doing more. When you're not, you decrease and you give up. This is a sign that the person is not sincere with their actions. When there's something to gain and there's some interest to be fulfilled, that's when I start doing more actions. When there's no interest, then that's khalas. That's when I start giving up. A third sign is, and this is a very scary one, is getting especially angry when someone brings to light your flaws, and getting especially happy when they bring to light your positives and the good things about you. This is a sign again. It doesn't necessarily mean you're not, but it could be a sign that there's something wrong with the intention. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us and protect our intentions from corruption. Allahumma ameen. Almost done. What is the cure for lack of sincerity? How can I fix this problem? If I feel like my intention's a little weak, that, you know what, I fall into this problem of being disingenuous, that when I'm around my father or my mother, I'm very good. And this is a time for people to be, especially the kids, to be very introspective. This word is especially for the kids and your parents. When I'm around my parents, they see me like I'm an angel. I'm a good person. When I'm alone, I have a completely other life that they know nothing about. Again, like we said, بَلِ الْإِنسَانُ عَلَى نَفْسِ بَصِيرًا وَلَوْ أَلْقَى You know what you're doing in your privacy. You know how you are alone, and Allah knows too. Don't ever forget that. Your parents don't know. They're oblivious. They think, oh, wallahi, I have a beautiful son. I have a beautiful daughter. They're such good people. But you know, they have some ism musta'ar, you have this Facebook account and Instagram account that your parents know nothing about, and you put awful things on it and you communicate in an awful way. And when you're around your parents, you speak with the most beautiful words, and when you're around your friends, you say every curse word in the book. You make up curse words. That's how good you are at cursing. You make up curse words. Sometimes there's many. That's a sign that the person needs to be honest with himself. Again, one of the signs, and if you're that person, then you need that courage to change your ways, to repent to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is not to lash anyone or to reprimand anyone. If you're that person, know that التوبة لا يقدر عليها إلا مخلص، كما أن الثبات لا يقدر عليها إلا المخلصون، وكما أن الاستمرارية في العمل لا يوفق لها إلا مخلص. Being consistent, being steadfast, just as the only ones who are able to do that are sincere individuals. كذلك التوبة لا يقدر عليها إلا مخلص. Someone who has sincerity in heart, that's the only person who can really repent. Because repentance entails that you're holding yourself accountable, that you're tracing back your steps, that you're recognizing that what I did, what I said was wrong. The way I've been living my life was wrong. I've been living a lie. I need to change the way I am. When you do this is a sign that there's sincerity in your heart. If there's no sincerity in your heart's dead. Sincerity gives the heart life. So, how can I cure this insincerity? Now, the root desire, or the root cause of insincerity, we said there's different motives. But now, why do people live their life in a very disingenuous way? It's because of lack of yaqeen, lack of certainty by what Allah Azza wa Jal has. By thinking that any human being can really benefit or really harm you other than Allah Azza wa Jal. If the person realized who humans are and what humans can really offer, that person's on the roadway to ikhlas. That's why they say that this is why the hadith of the hadith of Sayyidina Ibn Abbas is very important. Ya ghulam inni u'allimuka kalimat. The Prophet ﷺ taught Sayyidina Ibn Abbas a few words. All these words teach ikhlas. If you really implement that hadith of Ibn Abbas and you live it and you see its meaning, it'll lead you down the roadway of ikhlas. Knowing that Allah is the one who really chooses. وَرَبُّكَ يَخْلُقُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيَخْتَارُ مَا كَانَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ. Whoever you think they are. Allah is the one who creates what He does, what He intends and what He wills. And He's the one who chooses. مَا كَانَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ. Whoever you think will benefit you, your employer, your lover, the person who you want to get to marry, your friend, whoever you might think that they might actually harm you or benefit you. You are really flawed if you really think that they will harm you and benefit. If you have this yaqeen in Allah Azza wa Jal, that He is truly al-nafi' al-dar, that He is al-mu'ti al-mani', He is the giver, He is the taker. If you have this yaqeen and certainty in Allah, then sincerity will become very easy. Because just as you have so much need, every person you might desire also has that same exact need. Just as you have weakness, every person you might seek just has that same weakness. There's another hikmah. How can I train myself to be sincere? There's a hikmah. There's wisdom. It says, أجهل الناس من ترك يقين ما عنده لظن ما عند الناس. The most ignorant person is the one who leaves the certain knowledge he has of himself because of the assumptions that others have of him. People see an image from you. They don't see what's going on in here. You know what's going on in there. People see your outside. They don't see your privacy. Every one of us has a private time. People don't see that. Now, the most ignorant person is the one who takes that assumption that people have based on what they see and leaves that certainty that he has of his own self when he sees himself in his privacy. This is how I can train myself to be a sincere person. Now, I want to go back to 2 points and then we're done. 2 points and then we're done. Is it problematic to dislike blame? Like we said, one of the signs that there's something wrong with the sincerity is the person gets especially angry when his flaws come to light, and especially happy when his good deeds come to light. Is it problematic for the person to dislike blame? What do you think? Huh? Is it problematic? Is it a human tendency to feel bad when your flaws come to light? Is it human tendency? All right, so it's human. Is it problematic or is it human tendency? Which one is it? Yeah, it'd be problematic if you don't hold yourself accountable. But it in itself, the fact that, all right, someone saw something of you that you wish they didn't see, or heard something from you that you wish wasn't exposed and made you feel bad, and you got criticized for it. You feeling bad, is that a bad thing? No, it's not a bad thing. We're not, as human beings, we're not created in a way where we like to be criticized and we like to be blamed for things. No, this is not what is referred to by the scholars. All right, what about getting happy when the good things you do come to light? Is that something bad? When you do something good and it becomes known to people and it makes you happy. Feeling this happiness, is it bad? Am I supposed to hate? I'm supposed to get angry? I'm supposed to get upset at myself? How could you get happy because of something good that you did became known to people? Is it something bad? Huh? There's actually a hadith about this. There's a misconception a lot of people have. They think that mukhlis means to hate yourself. And being mukhlis means to dislike everything that mentions you in a good light or brings you in a positive light. That's not what ikhlas is, right? The person does the act for Allah Azza wa Jal. And then it becomes known and people thank him for it. فَيَفْرَحُ لِذَلِكَ. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أظهر الجميل وستر القبيح. Not because of you seeking their praise, but just because you're happy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected your flaws and made some good become of your good actions. يفرح لذلك. The Prophet ﷺ said, تلك عاجل بشر المؤمن. This is the early glad tidings of the believer. But the person needs to be very careful that that's his intention. Not that he's seeking praise because of it, because his intention can become corrupted. But if he just gets happy because of some good he did, helped people, or did something good for others, This happiness is not something bad. Islam doesn't teach you to hate yourself and to self-loathe. It's a very important point to bring to light. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was seeking worldly status. And then we're going to read the hadith one more time, and then we're going to conclude. Seeking worldly status. All right, say if a person wants to become a doctor, and the reason why they want to become a doctor is because they know that becoming a doctor will make them really respected in the community. And they want to be a respected person. And they want to be someone who people look up to. Is this person getting a sin for this intention? What do you think? Huh? Huh? No. He's not. I want to become a doctor because I could be respected. Forget about helping people. No. You become a doctor because this gives you. If this is his intention, wallahi, I want to be a doctor because I want to, when I go ask for some girl's hand, she's going to see me as a doctor and she's going to know I'm an important person. They're going to accept me right away. Right? This is why I want to become a doctor. Just say, مثلا, if this is the intention of the person, is this person committing a sin? What do you think? Huh? Why is he not getting sin though? Okay, all right, let's see. Okay. All right, yes, let's say he's doing it for praise. I'm doing I want to become because I just want to be praised. That's it. That's all I care about. مثلا, will he get sin? Just take it as an example. All right, this is why, this is a very important point. This is a very important point here. Al-Riya and the Shirk al-Asghar and these diseases, you get sins for them in ibadat, in acts of worship. عندما تقصد بشيء يراد به وجه الله عز وجل غيره حينها تقع في الإثم والذنب. But this person, instead of getting so much reward for having good intentions لخدمة الخلق ولإعانة المرضى doing so many good intentions with becoming a doctor, he could have or لكسب المال للإنفاق في سبيله, this person could have had 1,000,001 good intentions, but he chose to have 0 good intentions by this act. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells this person, من كان يريد حرث الآخرة نزد له في حرثه ومن كان يريد حرث الدنيا نؤتيه منها وما له في الآخرة من نصيب. This is from the worldly affairs. When you seek other than Allah Azza wa Jal in worldly affairs, do you get sin? No. Do you get reward? No. You miss out on a whole lot of reward. But when do you get sin? When you seek other than Allah in something that's a ibadah. Among that is مثلا طلب العلم, seeking knowledge. When you learn about Islam, that's why the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith, من طلب العلم ليباهي به العلماء ويماري به السفهاء أو يصرف وجوه الناس إليه فهو في النار. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, when you seek knowledge, because this is something that's a ibadah, when you're reading hadith and you're reading Quran and you're trying to learn, when you seek that knowledge to argue, when you seek that knowledge to impress, then you've committed a sin. So the sin of seeking other than Allah is when it's relating to a ibadah, not a worldly act. And yes, then that harm will be something else. That harm will be assessed in a different light. But is this person going to get ذنب الرياء لقصد غير الله تعالى في هذا العمل? No, he will not get the sin of riya and showing off, because this is a worldly act. Okay. So this is something, but will he get any reward? This person's a fool. We tell this person, you're a fool. You could have had a chance for so many rewards, and instead you chose that foolish intention just so that you can get this temporary status in the eyes of people. No, that's not how it's assessed. The hadith, once again, of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and make sure you say in this majlis many times, as-salah al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We want to connect with the words of our Prophet. We want to connect with our words of the Prophet in these majalis. So whenever you see his name or you hear his name said, you say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى. Every person will get what he intends. And then he says to us an example. فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله. Whoever's hijrah was to Allah and His Prophet, then his hijrah, and what does hijrah mean? Emigration, right? This is talking about the hijrah from Mecca to Medina, right? ومن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها. This person, he's only seeking dunya. أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. His hijrah he will only get what he strives for. And there's a beautiful verse in the Quran that summarizes this. وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. This is a way, this is a foundational verse that you should live your life by. وَأَن لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. You will not get anything in this life except what you truly strive for. What are you truly striving for? Are you truly striving for its zina and its appearances? Or are you truly striving for Allah Azza wa Jal? وَأَنَّ سَعْيَهُ سَوْفَ يُرَى ثُمَّ يُجْزَاهُ الْجَزَاءَ الْأَوْفَى وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us of Ahl al-Ikhlas and the people of sincerity. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from things that corrupt the heart. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who are genuine with themselves, genuine in their dealings with others, genuine in their commitment to their Islam. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who grow in their spiritual awareness and in their connection with Him subhanahu. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who grow in love of the teachings of our dearly beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who their actions are preserved on the Day of Judgment and get the full reward for everything they've done. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen, wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.